Hi, hope you all are doing well. This is a lecture where I would like to go over some of the codes and also show you how you can use your textbook to understand some of the elements that we will be referring to in our code. As you can see, this section, which talks about the document head, shows you what should be inside each of this element. So as soon as you see a tag called head or link or meta, it describes to you what it is all about or what is the element used for, and also should tell you what or how they are used in your code. Most of these element names are very similar to what they mean. So when I talk about script, it is about adding an additional script in that code that you're adding so that the browser can understand it. When we talk about a title, basically it shows the title of the page that you are creating. So I wanted to kind of refer back and forth between some of the textbook materials that you will be seeing and the codes that I'm going to be showing in just a minute. For example, if I go to the next one, you will see that there is a title that shows. So anything that you include between these two elements, title, is going to be shown and displayed on your page, right? So let's look into some coding, and I'm going to use the 3 or 4 HTML that we have seen in the book. So first off, let me show you the folder structure that we have. And I wanted to create something really simple. So I created a folder on my desktop called CTS1851. If I would open that up, it shows me these are the files. And as you can see, I'm using a little bit of a file management. So I created a folder called lesson 1. Inside my lesson 1, I have all these files. Now, this is where I only have 3 different kinds of files. I have an HTML, I have some HTML files, and I have some cascading style sheet files. I'm not going to get into the details of it because that is something that we will cover in the next section. I also have some image files. The PNG files are their image files. There are different kinds of images. You can have JPEGs, JPG, or you have PNG, but most of the time we want to stick with some of these PNG or JPEG formats because they can be zipped, or they actually use the format that is supported by most of the browsers. So you do not want to use a format that is not supported by the browser. But you might see that in the future lessons that these pages are also kept in separate folders. So we might create a folder called CSS and stick these individual files of CSS in that folder. We might have an HTML folder and stick all the HTML there. It's just organizing things. And again, you might have a picture folder and you might stick all your pictures there. But on your page, you will be referencing them correctly so that the links and the pictures and everything would show up correctly. But let's keep it very simple at this point. So as you can see over here, if I double click on this, it is going to open up my browser, and this is actually showing the page how it would look when you view it through a browser. In this case, I'm using either Chrome, or you can use Firefox. So you can view this with a browser. However, I want to point out something very important. If you look at the URL, you will see that this is on my local folder. Okay, so when I talk about taking these files and uploading it in a public domain, this is not going to be C at that time anymore. It is going to be HTTP and the name or the URL of the public domain. But for right now, for this week, it is okay to keep things on your desktop. But it is also important that you understand that it needs to be organized correctly. So I have my folder called 1851, and then I have the files inside. I can have additional files here as well. So if I open up these pages individually, and I wanted to show you the design of the page. So all these pictures, the shading, the color, the hue that you can see over here, these are all design aspects of this page, which is coming from the cascading style sheet, and we will go over the cascading style sheet next time. So let's look at the code for these individual pages. Okay, so if I would right click on this and I would use my editor, and I am using Notepad, but again, as I mentioned earlier, you can use any of the editor. So I have all these files that are open over here, and actually I can see two files open here, so I can close one of this. So let's look at some of the code. As I said earlier, this is HTML, so it's an opening tag of HTML and it's a closing tag of HTML. Inside the HTML, this is called language, which is also called sometimes the attribute. So within my HTML element, I have an attribute called language, and I'm specifying that this is in English. Okay, so these are some of the things that you'll be seeing on your page. Right after my HTML, there's a head. So within my head, okay, here are some of the things that I have. I have a comment section, which means the browser would ignore as soon as they see there's a beginning of the comment and the ending of the comment. So the browser is not going to try to display or render it on the web page. However, if you move to the next one and you see there's a difference in color between the two, and that is what I was referring to earlier about using the editor, which allows you to see it a little differently. Then you have a meta tag. Inside again an attribute called charset, and this is UTF-8. You don't have to remember every single one, because that is where I would like for you to go back and reference it from your book. Okay, I do not want you to memorize anything. Just understand what the code is doing. And then I have my title called Mobile Panini, and then these are my links. So basically I can actually click on one of the pages and it would link me to the style sheet that I'm using. So remember I mentioned about the styling of the page, the color, the hue, the background, the shading, everything is been controlled by the style sheet code that I have here. So I have two style sheets, the MP_base and MP_layout. Okay. Then I close my head. I have a body. Inside my body, I have a header tag. And then within my header, I have a link which allows me to connect from one page to the other. Remember, your browser would allow you to link your pages so that you can move seamlessly from one to the other by clicking on that link. So ahref is the code that you would use, which is the link code. And then you have to, within your quotation mark, you have to put in the page that you're trying to link to. Okay, very, very important. And then you have an image. So this tells you that you want to include an image over here. This is the name of the image file, and these are very important that you name your files correctly. Otherwise, it is not going to show. And then this is alt tag, which means if somebody is using a scale or any kind of a disability format, it would tell you exactly what it would need. So you're reading it through some kind of a reader, then it would tell you that this is an image of Mobile Panini. Then you have a navigation, and again it's opening and closing navigation, and inside you have an unlisted unordered list. So UL stands for unordered list. Now the question may be, where am I finding all this information? And let me bring up my code over here. So I'm going to scroll down a little more, and this is where it explains a few more of what I just talked or explained to you, some of the general directions. And then I want to point this one out to you. This is a difference between the HTML4 and HTML5. Some of the 4 tags are deprecated. This is what we will be using. So you can see there's a layout that is very, very important to remember. So this is your header. your navigation bar, you can break out, or you can separate out your page that you're adding the information with tags like sections and aside, and then you can put in a footer in here. And then these are the elements that I'm referring to, what I was referring to earlier. So as soon as you say you see an element called A, that's an hyperlink. If you see something called a figure or a main, excuse me, or an unordered list, ordered list, so this gives you all the elements. Excuse me. So this is where you want to come back and reference when you're writing your code as to how you want to have it show up on your browser, on your page. So these are all these individual elements over here. So let me go back to this. So here is my article. Remember how my section can have an article and a section. So the book also would tell you what should be the things, what would you include in your article. So basically you're trying to create some data definitions. So you're saying this is my definition list. These are my definition terms. So this is a term, and then this is my definition that I am trying to define about this term called panini. Okay, so this is how you would code your pages. You finish your article, then you start your footer, and then you put all this information there. You close your body, and then you close your HTML tag. As you can see here, every single closing tag is preceded by this /. Now let's jump a little bit into another page, and again this is the ahref that I was referring to, which is going to connect the pages. So it's very important that you are saying you're listing it in the correct format. ahref, this is the page that you're trying to go to, and this is the name of the page. So if you want to show that page as a home page, and then if you want to connect to that home page, this is what you would include in here. You would close your anchor tag or your link tag, and then you will also close your list. So this is an unordered list, which means it would not have 1, 2, 3, and 4. It's unordered, and you're going to close your navigation, close your header, and go to your article. And then again, H1 is a tag which gives you the heading. You can have all the way from H1 to H6 or H7, and that would control the size of the fonts that you would be using, that is going to be showing. And then a little bit to the aside. So there, again, there's a section that you're using here. These are all semantic tags. So if you look into some of the other ones, again, I have other tags, the div tag, again, opening and closing with a little bit of a header, and this P stands for paragraph, and then this is how I'm going to end my paragraph. BR is giving you the break. The white space is not going to be recognized unless you put this thing within a break tag, because that is how the browser is going to recognize that you want to give it some space, right? So hopefully with this video, you would be able to scroll through and look at some of these individual elements and would be able to refer back and understand what these elements are doing. Okay, thank you.